Hey, it's Kevin DeWitch here and welcome to another plugin knowledge session. In this session we're going to check out a plugin called Twin-L from PSP. So firstly, if you are new to my channel and you like what you see, please click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell for all my future videos. PSP plugin manufacturer, I'm checking out a lot of their plugins at the moment. If you might have already seen some of my videos, if some are up, depending on how I release these. Otherwise, this may be one of the first ones, I'm not sure. But the Twin-L is a twin limiter plugin. It has a VCA style limiter and an Opto style limiter. So VCA being a more modern based limiter and Opto being more of a vintage style limiter. Has some great features in there, obviously giving you some good options there. So let's just check it out and I'll run through more of the features in the next part of the video.
All right, so here we are in Cubase. We have a song dialed up and we've got our PSP Twin-L on the track. They do state that they don't actually emulate any specific hardware, but they're just, I guess, an approximation of those type of limiters as opposed to trying to emulate some specific piece of hardware. So obviously we can switch between the two with this simple switch here. We can go from Opto to VCA, whichever you prefer. We have our gain reduction scale here. So this is showing how many dBs of gain reduction is happening. The limiter is performing. We have a limit or through switch. This, I guess, basically is like a bypass switch. So if we have it in limit, we're limiting. If we have it in through, we are just passing through and nothing is happening. Okay, we have an attack control here, which obviously sets the amount of time the limiter takes to respond when the signal gets above the ceiling or threshold or whatever it is. And this varies obviously from 0.1 milliseconds up to 100 milliseconds. And same with release, obviously the opposite way though, how long it takes for the limiter to release limiting once the audio drops back down. And again, this one here, slightly different values though. We're going from 10 milliseconds up to 1,000 milliseconds. We have a soft hard switch here, and this is the knee of the limiter. Okay, so this is setting whether it's using a soft knee or a hard knee. Right, and when we're saying limiter here, you could almost relate limiter, compressor, the same thing. So if you're getting confused thinking, hang on, this terminology is the same as what everybody talks about with a compressor. Well, a limiter in a basic concept is a compressor with a very, very high ratio. Okay, so it functions the same as a compressor. It's just more extreme. Now, that's obviously oversimplified. There's more to it than that, but that's the general concept. The input there, that's input gain. So obviously we can boost our audio up to get it to start hitting the ceiling, start pushing the audio into the limiter to get it to start limiting if it's too low. If it's already too loud, we can dial it down and back it out. Our output control here will balance the output level that comes out of the plugin. So where we want it to go there. The ceiling is setting the position of where as they're stating, infinity to 1 ratio occurs. So the basically brick wall type limiting occurs. So this is going to set that value there of when it starts. And they do state in the manual that if you set it to a soft knee, then what happens is it just does a gradual sort of curve. They're stating between 1 to 1 up to infinity to 1 below the ceiling level. So just sort of near the end of where you get to the brick wall limiter, it will do a basic curve, soft curve knee shape there. We've also got a sidechain section here, so we can set the sidechain to be internal, as in the settings in the plugin. We can also set it to external, so if we want to utilize some sidechain and get it to listen to another track or a kick or something else and make its decisions about whether it's limiting or not on that, we can set it to external and then dial in, set up our DAW to function with that external sidechain and determine what we're going to actually monitor or detect from to make its decisions. So when we're talking about internal here, we have a high pass filter here. So we can dial that in up to 1K there or totally off. This is going to determine what, for the internal sidechain, we stop listening to. We also have a link knob here, which determines the amount of left and right channel linking. So in the middle here, it means that the channels, I guess, are balanced. They're entirely linked together. When it's set to 50, so it's going to limit both channels identically, no matter whether it's the audio that pushes it is in the left or right. You can then obviously, by this, dial it to go to the left only or to the right, or sorry, 0 to 100. This switch here allows us to switch between listening to the process signal, so our actual compressed signal, or we can switch it over to the monitoring mode. So we can now be listening to what the sidechain is listening to, so we can check what it's detecting off, what it's hearing, listening to make its decisions on compression. We set it to monitor. Standard to hear the actual compression limiting, we want it to be listening to the processing style. And then we have a blend control, also often known as mix. So at the moment, 100%, that means we are sending out the entire limited signal. If we go down to 0, we're going to send out our entire dry signal with no limiting, and anywhere in between, we're going to blend a bit of the dry signal and a bit of the limited signal in and output that so that we can hear it. We also have some preset management stuff here, some actual presets, a bit of AB, and we can even change the size if we so choose. So if we want it to be a bit bigger, we're not happy with how big it is, we just click on that and then change the scale. I don't know. Oh, you can change it quickly. If you want to make it really big, you can do that quite easily by clicking on there and just picking a bigger scale. Depending on what you prefer, you can go back to your normal style there. Or for the case of this video, we might blow it up a little bit. Increase it a little bit. So that's nice to have, you know, everybody likes to work at different sizes. You can even make it smaller if you want. You want it smaller, you can. All right, let's say, how about we just dial something in here? We'll just have a bit of a play with the settings and we'll see what it does. So if we activate it, we're already heavily limiting this. You can see that's hitting really hard. So that's bypassed. So we might want to set our ceiling somewhere. Just set it to, we'll bring it down a little bit. So we'll go to -3. I mean, normally, if we were using this for mastering or something like that, you might set it to 0 or anywhere between 0 and -1 dB. I'm just pulling it down just for convenience sake as part of this. But, you know, if you set it up to just below 0 here, you might find that you have to push the input volume to get it to start actually compressing. You can see there, it's pretty much hitting with the kick. That's really what's pushing it over at the moment. Now, obviously, if I push it harder, we start to get a lot more audio that's going in there. Well, let's pull it back. So you can see there by the timing, it's pretty much hitting with the kick and snare. They're the major components that are doing it. So if we just do a before and after just with this simple function, we need to adjust the volume, get the balance right. So it's pulling the kick down a little bit there, balancing it out. Now we can make the attack faster so that it responds quicker. It's hitting that kick more and the snare. Or if we slow it down too much, it lets the kick through and there's nothing really hitting it now. Same with our release. If we go fast, we'll pull the transient down and then let go very quickly. Or we could keep the compression going, the limiting going. But you can hear there it's pulled it down and there's a little bit of pumping going on as it comes back in slowly. But it's hardly ever coming back in. But you can hear it pumping. So it gets, you can hear there if you listen to it. I'll play it again in a minute, I'll stop talking. But you can hear it with the release setting here. So the attack is getting triggered. It's hitting on the kick. And because we've got the release so slow, it's limiting. The limiter's been activated and it's holding that limiting happening, pulling the signal down for a long period of time. And then you can hear it sort of release and come back in and the volume goes up and then it kick goes again and it drops down again. So obvious pumping effect there, so you wouldn't want that. Now we can see what the difference with a soft knee does. You can see a bit more gets limited there. It stays up there for a little bit longer. It's just because of that soft curve. People generally think soft knees make the limiting less, but in actual fact, it can generally mean that it compresses more. It just does it subtly across the board and changes a lot less frequently. But because it's doing a curve instead of like a hard bend, like a hard knee, the decision between compressing or not compressing goes for a wider scale. So you'll find that it actually compresses for a longer period of time than it does with a hard knee, where it just is compressing, then it stops, compressing, and it's not. Now we can see the kick is hitting there. We could obviously dial our high pass filter up here, and it will stop triggering on the kick so much. We want to hear what it's doing. This is the audio that it is now, the compressor is listening to. Now, just so that you're 100% clear, when we set up a sidechain and you do a filter like this, it doesn't change the sound of the audio as such. It doesn't filter out the kick. It doesn't even stop the compressor from compressing the kick. What it stops is the compressor listening to the kick to decide if it's going to compress. When it does go to compress, it still compresses the kick. It will still pull the kick down. It's just not responding to the kick. So if the kick's our loudest element, as you can see there, when I've removed the kick from the detection circuit only, not the compression circuit, the detection circuit. So it's not listening so much to the kick. Now you can still hear the kick there, but you're hearing the top end of it. So that's why it's not responding so much, and you'll see it's actually responding more to the snare now than the kick, because I've filtered that kick out of the detection. Now if I let it go, now it's responding to the kick again. So if we go back to that pumping effect, potentially we could reduce that by not responding to the kick. So we're getting that less of that pumping effect now because it's not really responding to the kick. It's still not the way I would set it up, but that was just an example. So, you know, if I wind it up to 1K, you can hear how obvious this side chain is. Now, I don't know what this does though. Okay, if I go to 0, it sounds like it's listening more to the left. Go that side, it sounds more listening to the right side of the channel. And then in the middle, it's listening to them together. So it's not about the compression, it's just about the detection circuit. I was just confused with that because some plugins have a link control for the actual compression as well, where it will actually compress the left and right channels individually as opposed to pulling them both down together. This case here, that's not the case. It will still limit both together. It's just the side chain is only listening to the left, right, or both in the middle, or any portion in between. So let's turn that off. We've got our usual setting here that we could really push this limiter, all right, but then do our blend. So now we're dry, and we could blend in some over limited compressed signal with our dry to whatever taste we want. 100%, you can hear how squashed it is. It's horrible. Let's just pull it back down to a reasonable level there. Now that's been all done on the VCA channel, so let's sort of flick between Opto and VCA, see what we can hear with that, if there's any major difference. So there's a bit of difference there. You can even see it responding differently on the meters. This is a bit slower, especially with the release. It's not going back so quickly. This one's a bit more snappy, a lot more jerky movement. Now obviously that's going to depend on our settings here as well. But you can see just by not changing any of these settings, and you can hear a little bit of a difference in the sound. Well, you might think there's a lot of difference. I am doing this on headphones, so I'm not getting 100% accurate results, but you know, good results there. So, but you've got both options there. Pick and choose. You can play with it and do whatever you like with it. Get the sound that you're after from your little limiting there. Obviously, this can be used in a mastering session if you want to do your entire track, but they could also be used on individual tracks if you so choose to and want to have a limiter on one.
So there you go. There is the Twin-L from PSP. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. If you have any questions, obviously ask me any questions you like in the comments. I'm happy to help where I can. And if you're checking out some of the PSP plugins and get some demos, whatever, let me know what you think of the various plugins and what you like about them or don't like about them. Happy to hear your opinion on those. Again, if you have any comments, please leave them in the comments below. Happy to answer any questions that I can. Again, if you like the video, please click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. Hopefully this video has been helpful. I thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.